Welcome everyone to Buddha's Center. So nice to be with everyone tonight and talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, source of all my good, begging for a mountain of blessings. This very short poem, 14 stanzas that encompasses all of the Buddha's teachings and shows us how to practice in a summarized way everything that the Buddha taught individuals who wanted to be spiritual practitioners. To go from a place like where I am at a very beginning foundation, just starting level in terms of the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity and the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity and the teachings for beings of great capacity, to from where I am at a very beginner small level to perfection. And everything that's needed is either explicitly right out there in those 14 stanzas that are so beautiful, or contained within it. And we can just kind of refer over to the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and plug those stanzas in to the various sections and see how the greater meaning can be understood, and then look at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the tantric stages of the path to enlightenment. And then we can see how an even greater meaning can be understood, because Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, the Lamrim Chemo, only includes a very, very small section on Tantra right at the end. But you'll see in the source of all my good, it's a pretty large section if we're looking at it in terms of how long the source of all my good is, the foundation of all good qualities is, and to understand what Lama Tsongkhapa is really talking about, entering into Tantra through an initiation and having the foundation and understanding, implicitly in there, the 4 classes of Tantra, and then seeing the point of the generation and completion stages that are made in there. You really, in order to get a good view or to see the full view of what Lama Tsongkhapa is talking about, you really need those 2 texts, the Lamrim Chemo and the Ngarim Chemo. The great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment and the great treatise on the stages of the tantric path to enlightenment. And with both of these texts together, you get the complete overview. And then you can take it even further and further and further, because then Lama Tsongkhapa writes individual works on various tantras, and then writes individual works on the various great books like the Abhisamalamkara and the Sawasherap, Nagarjuna's Moya Madhyamika Karika, and Chandrakirti's commentary, our supplement to the Middle Way. We see there's so much material out there that we can benefit from. And then the way that we benefit from this material is to start, as beginners, looking at the kind of basics and then expand and say, oh, they're referring to this here. Or I want to understand more about emptiness. Where else did Lama Tsongkhapa talk about it? I want to understand more about Prajnaparamita and grounds and paths. And where else did Lama Tsongkhapa talk about it? So we see we have a plethora of information at our disposal, right at our fingertips. So all we have to do is just put the effort in. And if we put the effort in, then we'll slowly be able to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together and have a concise understanding of the whole body of the path. And if we have a concise understanding, that means that we'll be able to traverse the stages of the path without error. And if there's error, then that means that we are not going to make it to Buddhahood. And that doesn't mean it to scare folks like, oh, we have to do this perfectly or we don't have a shot. It's just to say that the stages of the path are very specific and have cause and effect relationships, have, bases within the scopes before the scopes. The small scope has a basis that the medium scope needs, and the great scope needs the small and medium scope basis. So we see that all of these things are presented in a way that allow us to truly be able to achieve a complete Buddhahood, and not just maybe achieve a complete Buddhahood, definitely achieve Buddhahood, because we're relying on authentic teachings, authentic sources, authentic masters who have independence upon these teachings, achieved realizations, independence upon this material that we're looking at. Masters have been able to generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, realize emptiness, And we know that those two things are necessary. If we want to become a Buddha, it's necessary for us to enter the path of accumulation, the Mahayana path of accumulation, become a bodhisattva, generate aspiring bodhicitta, and then take the bodhisattva vow and have engaged bodhicitta. And that's the path of accumulation. And then we go to the path of preparation as, normal bodhisattvas and have this union of calm abiding and special insight that has as its object of observation the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. And we're able to, on this path of preparation, get more and more subtly, get a more and more subtle understanding of the emptiness of inherent existence, while still relying on a sign. But that sign, the dualistic appearance, becomes less and less apparent to the point where the subject can't even recognize that the sign, the kind of generic image anymore that he or she is using to apprehend the nature of reality. And then once one gets to that fourth level of the path of preparation, then he or she is right at that last state as an ordinary being, and emptiness is just right there. And the breakthrough moment can happen only if the causes and conditions are present for that breakthrough moment to happen, for one to be able to directly perceive emptiness, to have a direct, valid cognition of the nature of reality through the path of seeing, through an uninterrupted path and a path of release, where one then is a bodhisattva on the first ground. And then he or she sees emptiness again and again and again. It moves from the first to the second ground, moves, from the first to the second ground, to the third, to the fourth, to the fifth, to the sixth, to the seventh, to the eighth, to the ninth, and the 10th ground, through this process, which starts at the path of seeing, where one hits the first ground, and the first ground carries over into the path of meditation, and then all 10 grounds are practiced on the path of meditation. And those pure grounds, the 8th, 9th, and 10th bodhisattva ground, are what allow the bodhisattva to not only get rid of the afflictive obstructions, but the obstructions to omniscience, because they happen, the removal of the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience occur kind of in an order, where the removal, there are the impure grounds and the pure grounds, meaning the impure grounds where the afflictive obstructions are still being removed, and the pure grounds where the obstructions to omniscience are removed. So that process is very detailed, and you can see that it isn't something that just one instantly or spontaneously realizes. So fortunately, we're relying on texts that have all of the concise information and haven't left anything out, so that we can truly achieve the realizations that the masters have achieved, that we've met, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Khyentse Geshe Wandak and Jeffrey Hopkins, all of these very, very highly realized masters that we've met have realized what they've realized in dependence upon the exact material that we have in our hands. So there's no excuse for us to say, oh, it's not something that we can do, but it's wonderful that they could. If I stand next to them somehow through osmosis, all of this will occur. But we have to look at our teachers and see, how did they achieve what they achieved? And it wasn't through osmosis. It was through never being satisfied with partial instructions. It was through concerted effort. It was through the persistence that Genla, Jeffrey Hopkins, tells us is necessary to get to where he got to. His main advice when we asked, what kind of advice do you have for folks who are studying at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives? What is advice that you have? And he said that his name, again, Nenden Jambel Drapa in Tibetan, part of it is the persistence. And the persistence is what allows you to, publish 63 books and, truly be able to discern the kind of finite details of emptiness. And this is someone who was not born, in India, or born, in some place that's exotic in our minds. This is, someone who lived in, towns like we live in, and grew up in, with someone, with a father who managed a hardware store, something like this. So we shouldn't say we can't do it because it's not our culture. And we shouldn't say, oh, well, maybe I can wait till my next life. If I just make prayers and aspirations that in my next life, maybe I can then be able to have the persistence that these incredible masters have had. And we never know. Our next life isn't guaranteed exactly what's going to happen. I won't be doing much if I'm just a worm in the backyard of my garden out here. And I shouldn't think that I'm so far away from that state, from being born as the worm in the garden that I see, or the ant that I try not to step on, or the deer that doesn't make it across the street and is dead on the side of the road. I feel so disconnected from that potential, but I have to recognize that that potential is there for me. And the only separating me from a rebirth like that is the fact that I haven't died. And if at the time of death, I'm not prepared, that is a pretty good potential rebirth. If Arya Davis says that most beings for the most part are involved in the ignoble, therefore most ordinary beings go to the lower realms. Generally speaking, sometimes there's a difference. Vasubandhu says that the hungry ghosts are more clever than the animals, so sometimes they switch them. But generally speaking, we see that the animal realm's the highest realm, higher realm when we look at the Lam Rim in the lower realms. And if most beings go to the lower realms, then the worm in my garden is a good deal for me if I don't get this right. So we have to understand the real significance of this practice. And today's teaching and practice through the power of the truth of what I'm saying right now, Venerable Gen Nenden Jambel Drapa Jeffrey Hopkins is quite ill, quite weak. We did a Medicine Buddha sadhana for him today as a group. And I just want to say that somehow through this pure kind of motivation to teach the truth of suchness so that, beings can be liberated, may somehow the obstacles to longevity be removed. So I just want to kind of dedicate everything from here to Genla and just say thank you to all of the beings like Genla who spent so much time and just day and night work for our sakes. And we should never forget this. And yeah, so before I go any further, let's imagine, as I'm going to do, to the best of my ability. We have to do it in a contrived way, or fake it till we make it. I was giving a teaching on Sunday in renunciation, and someone said, "Why contrived?" And I said, "Well, it's even contrived for a bodhisattva on the high grounds, because until you're omniscient, you can't locate even every sentient being. So when we do practice, when we imagine we're bringing all sentient beings here, every single one of them, we have to use a lot of dots in a stadium because we don't even know where they all are. We don't even know who they all are. And we're not alone because I don't know what ground you need to be at to know where they all are, but it's not right away because only the Buddha knows everything. So when I say contrived, in a fake it till you make it, we're going to have to pretend we know what a hell, 8 hot hell, 8 cold hell, surrounding hells, hungry ghosts. We're going to have to kind of make a little of that up unless you're highly advanced, unless you're, not who you appear to be. You appear to be, kind of like me. And that, Dharmakirti says, don't trust that. Don't trust appearances. All you can know about is your own mind. You only know where you're personally at. For all I know, everyone could be a Buddha. Just being like, come on, you're the last one. We're hoping we can pull you over the line, Jeff. I can't be so sure, Dharmakirti says. I can't be so sure. But if you're like me, if it happens to be true, then when I do this and I recite this verse from the King of Aspiration prayers and I say, may I speak in the language of all beings, and I imagine I'm bringing all beings here. So much of it is just imagining I'm bringing all beings here, and I'm doing the best I can based on the descriptions that are presented in the Lamrim teachings. And then I'm hoping that eventually we're learning tonight about calm abiding. And one of the things about calm abiding is that's great, that you need it for, according to Lord Atisha in the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, is to get clairvoyance. And so hopefully through practicing these paths in this life, right? Pabunga Rinpoche says that you can do it in 6 months. You can get calm abiding in 6 months if you could really, really put some concerted effort into it. So it's not way out of reach. You know, it's not somewhere you couldn't get to. So what we're talking about tonight allows us to be less contrived, less and less and less, to the point where you can actually locate all of the beings that I'm about to talk about. So you're imagining, and even if it's in a contrived way, that you bring every single sentient being in the universe here to be a guest, to witness, to listen to this practice. We know that the Buddha can't just transfer realizations or wash away negativities or, you know, take away our suffering. The Buddha can only teach the truth of suchness. So we imagine, and that's how beings are liberated. Beings have to practice. We have to practice it on our own. The Buddha can't do it for us. The Buddha can be very skillful and come into our world and nudge us along to be able to then, you know, study all these texts like I'm talking about. You know, the Buddhists can come to this world and say, hey, you need persistence. You need to study. You need to, you know, don't be satisfied with partial instructions. But then it's in our court. Free. It's free, you know, like, you know, nobody's going to hold you down and say, okay, now, all right, you know, you got to figure out why it's not arisen from self, other, both, or causelessly. You got to figure it out. I'm going to hold you down until you figure out why it's not inherently one or separate from its parts. This is something we have to discover for ourselves. And the Buddha discovered this truth that is here for us to all discover. The truth that putting others' needs before your own and generating bodhicittas is the way to feel the best, the way to be the happiest. And if you can put that together with emptiness, you can be the happiest person in the universe, the most reliable guide in the universe, have perfect wisdom, perfect love and compassion, skillful means and power. So that's where we're all headed, but we have to do it step by step by step. So just, you know, if you need to get somewhere and you're walking, don't just stand there and go, oh, I'll never get there. Just start, just start walking. And the walking is clarified for us. What is that? Our teachers are so clear to us. Lama Tsongkhapa is so clear to us. What to do, how to walk, and where we're going. And all vehicles lead to Buddhahood. According to the Prasangika vehicle, everyone will be Buddha. We all have Buddha nature. Our mind is all in the nature of clear light and unsullied. The stains are adventitious. They're not there for good. It can be distilled. We're so fortunate. So now imagining that you have hell, hungry ghost, animal, human demigods and gods, brought them all here for one specific purpose, to hear whatever it is they need to hear within their scope, in their language, because I'm saying I'm doing it in their language. So just have faith in that, doing more contrived. Oh, okay, Jeff's somehow magically converting his language into the language of all beings. But what's cool is the Buddha does that. The Buddha can utter one word. That's one of the qualities of the Buddha's speech. When we study the 60 melodious qualities of the Buddha's speech, one of the qualities of the Buddha's speech is that he or she can utter one word and answer all the questions of sentient beings simultaneously if they're all different in their own languages. So here, we're just trying to familiarize our minds with and create a mental basis that could actually rise up into a being, could dependently arise into. My mind could reflect and know everything instead of what it knows now. Not everything, some things. So there's no limit to what the mirror can reflect. And no, there's no limit. It's just what's dependently originating. And right now, afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience are my view. So my view is samsara and not bliss of Buddhahood. I just have to change my view by changing that which I'm knowing, by changing what I'm knowing. And what I'm knowing is messed up because since beginningless time, I've grasped at things as being inherently existent. So samsara has had no beginning. But because that ignorance can be ended, samsara can have an end. And once that happens, it never comes back. Because there's never again, once you end samsara, that which gives rise to it. Samsara is over if the afflictive obstructions are gone. Full stop. Geshe Dorje Damdu's new favorite things. Full stop. Okay. So bring all sentient beings here to be your guest, and we'll go from there. In the land, laike dan le dan no jinke drubun da dan mi ke nan dan dro wa gun ji da nan ji zan ba dan che ke du da ji ju den do. In the language of gods, nagas, and yakshas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all.
Baby.
Now, get into the 7-point Vairakana posture. We talked about this last week in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. It talks about one of the great qualities is that it inspires others. It talks about the great qualities of Vairakana posture and the Shravaka levels by Lord Maitreya, and it talks about Shravaka levels by Master Asanga, and it talks about how this is an inspiring posture. So get into the 7-point Vairakana posture as we've done many times. And imagine that all sentient beings around you get into the 7-point Vairakana posture. You've inspired them. This is a posture that allows, according to the great text and the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and Kamala Shila's stages, we find that this posture is important. And why is it important? Because it allows for our winds to flow in a very, very even way. It's a posture that allows us to sit for long periods of time comfortably, and the blood flows right and so forth. And it allows, because we know that our mind rides on the subtle wind, if everything's in line the way that it should be, our mind is ready to just kind of be more malleable. Right? And when we tell it what to do, it'll be more apt to do it if it's not having kind of hindrances physically in terms of the physical body serving kind of as an opponent to our concentration. So 7-point Vairakana posture is something that helps us concentrate. So we're going to get into this posture, and it's a good posture if we're listening to a teaching, because we want to abandon the faults of the 3 pots. And we want to have a clear mind where we're able to hear everything that's coming in and not forget the things that are coming in, and not have our kind of mind being discursively polluting the information. So we want to be able to get our minds into the best state to be able to hear this information, because we know that we're ill and that this information is the medicine that we need to take. But unfortunately, no one just hands us a pill. They hand us information that we have to have in our minds and then work with. And working with it is the taking the medicine. So we want to be as clear as possible so that we know exactly what that medicine is. We talked about before, if you have a little bit of a mistake and you start to, you meditate on it, and you're analyzing something that's wrong because you misheard the teaching, you don't have the wisdom arisen from hearing. You have something that isn't wisdom that you arose from hearing that you're now analyzing. So the listening part of the teaching and the reading of the text and the retaining of it and the way that you're reading it is so important, because all you have to do is twist a hearing or twist a reading, and then you're analyzing something that isn't really going to get you anywhere. So it's so important that our meditation is founded on actual facts, information. And that's why we're going to spend so much time on the shamatha practice and calm abiding. And that's why we've already looked into so much of it. And we will continue to look at more. So 7-point Vairakana posture. Okay. Now imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, the front generation form, beautiful, radiant, but in a static form. But actual Buddha Shakyamuni, as actual as you can possibly imagine, about an arm length away, size of your thumb, eye height, beautiful, however you normally would imagine Buddha Shakyamuni. So just imagine Buddha Shakyamuni right there in front of you. and start to tell your mind, all I'm going to do is focus on a few things right now. All the other stuff I was thinking about before the teaching, all this kind of scattering I was thinking about, I'm going to try to stop. I'm going to try to I'm going to tell my mind I'm only going to focus on some things. All the excitement, the running towards desirous objects. I'm going to tell my mind that's not what we're doing right now. I'm going to only let you focus on these things. And the sleepiness, the lethargy, the laxity, the dullness that kind of you maybe came into the teaching with, that could it creep in to what you're telling your mind to focus on. And then you didn't tell your mind to focus sleepily on these things. You're telling your mind to be calm and brilliant and bright and illuminated on these things that you're telling your mind to think about. So here we're going to just, for a small amount of time, focus on 4 things. We already have Buddha Shakyamuni generated. Just try to keep Buddha Shakyamuni, even if it's just when we start to get calm abiding, sometimes it's just an outline, a light of Buddha Shakyamuni, like a orb. You'll find if you practice this and you do, front generation deity yoga, deity in self-generation deity yoga, you'll find that even your self-generation will sometimes just be a blub, So allow that. Don't be just so fixated on the details of the image. Allow it to rest in whatever its place. Can you please mute? Allow it to rest in whatever its place is, as clear as you possibly.
And this is why American people have had it with this. This is absurd. And we're not tracking, by the way, any of the money.
Karen? Here we go. Okay. We're good. So we're imagining Buddha Shakyamuni as beautiful and radiant as you possibly can, but 2 inches. It's really important to try to get your meditation objects and within a reasonable size, because it can be really distracting if it's too big. But if it's too small, it's almost like you're trying to look through binoculars the wrong way. So you're really trying to, get it to the point where, because as you advance on the path, you're going to want to add a lot of details. And they say that, in the Kala Chakra practice, you could imagine the whole mandala with 777 deities, I think, the size of a mustard seed, I believe it says. So this is why we start to get good at really refining our ability to hone in on objects of observation. So we're not going to let our minds sleep out. We're not going to let our minds go all over the place. And if they start to, introspection is going to say, hey, mindfulness, mindfulness is not forgetting the object. You told your mind to focus on some things, so you're not going to allow yourself to forget the object. So Buddha Shakyamuni in the front, and you're going to then focus on breathing in and out. So breathing in, filling your lungs and your diaphragm all the way to the top. Make sure you're inhaling fully, but not in a hurried way, not in a distracting way, not in a way that is going to make it talks about in the Dalai Lama's commentary on Kamala Shila's stages of meditation that you and that you don't want, any kind of, very loud, noisy breathing that's taking place. It should be very even, but a full inhalation. So breathing in all the way to the top of the breath, but not forcing it, just very natural. And then breathing out and then counting. So we're counting the rounds of breath, breathing in, breathing out, and counting 1. And the whole time you have Buddha Shakyamuni in the front generation form. So breathing in. That was a little loud, but I was trying to do that forcefully so you could hear it. Breathing out and counting in the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni. So we'll do this just for a few rounds, just as an exercise. You can then on your own do it. But all of these teachings are just exercises, things that you can take into your practice. They aren't for the point of stacking information and, learning more than the person next to you. It's about learning what one needs to learn in order to subdue your mind thoroughly. The Buddha said, abandon evil, engage in perfect virtue, and subdue your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So the whole point of everything that we're doing is to subdue that mind so you could abandon evil and engage in perfect virtuous actions. So let's for a moment in the 7-point Vairakana posture, meditate on breathing in, breathing out, counting the breath, and the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, just to get our minds to a reasonable place. Now imagine that you look into the eyes of Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha Shakyamuni now is moving around and smiling and looking into your eyes with love and compassion, just so pleased that all sentient beings are gathered here in order to learn what the Buddha came to this world 2,600 years ago to present. Buddha Shakyamuni is so pleased, looking into your eyes with so much love and compassion. And now imagine that an eruption takes place from the bliss that Buddha Shakyamuni is experiencing from seeing all sentient beings engaging in the path. And this eruption causes the entire merit field to start to form in the space in front of you. There's a meditation where it's contained in one or all. So imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing all of the entire merit field, and you start to see all of the holy beings, all of the enlightened beings in the merit field, starting to fill in the space in front of you, imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama on a Vajra throne supported by snow lions. Imagining Khenser Geshe Wandak, some of us were so connected to, my root Lama. Thank you so much, Khenser Rinpoche. You really, really taught the truth of suchness, taught reality so well. Thank you. Imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Demalocha Rinpoche, Khenser Lobsang Jatso. Imagining Geshe Doje Damdu, Umzula Geshe Aga, Geshe Malatins and Ladrin. Imagining Jeffrey Hopkins, a holy, holy being. We're so fortunate that he came into this world to help us understand emptiness, to help us understand the Mahayana path. May all obstacles to his longer life be removed. Imagining Chado Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Anya Tupten children, any being who consider a holy enlightened being, anyone that you consider. We look at our teachers as Buddhas if we can. We do the best we can. Now imagine all the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Vasubandhu and Dignaga and Dharmakirti and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra, Shakyaprabha, Gunaprabha, imagining Lama Salimpa and Atisha. We're so fortunate to be connected to this lineage, all the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti. We're so fortunate. Baba Vega and Chandrashita, Kamala Shila, all of these beings in the profound view lineage. Nagarjuna was so kind to come to this world and revive the teachings of the Mahayana as predicted by Lord Buddha. Imagining again Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha, the beings of the lineage blessings passed down Vajradhara, Saraha, Matripa, Tulopa, Naropa, Lotsawa, Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa. Imagining Lord Atisha is passing down the Lamrim lineage to Drontompa. Thinking about all the old Kadampa lineages, the 3 old Kadampa lineages, the holy beings of the Nyingma, Padmasambhava, Sakya, Sakya Pandita, Satya Kunganimpo, Kaju, all the Karmapas, Galupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtap J, Jelsip J, Pension Sanandrapa, Basu Juji Jetson, Jayan Sheba, Janja Rupi Dorje, Gonju Jimmy Wampo, the 7th Dalai Lama, Jet Sumba, Purbajok, all of these holy beings we're so connected to. Khenser Geshe Wandak made sure that we knew who all of these beings were. imagining the beings of the highest yoga tantra, performance tantra, action tantra, all the 35 Buddhas, all the protector deities, small scope protectors, Vaishravana, medium scope protector, Kala Rupa, and the Dharma Raja, great scope protector, Mahakala, imagining Palden Lamo, all the Dharma Palas. So fortunate. Now that everyone is here, all the enlightened beings are here, and all sentient beings are here, we know that there's only two kinds of beings in the universe, Buddhas and sentient beings. We will all become Buddha as soon as we finish the 10th Bodhisattva ground in the perfection vehicle. That's kind of the satsam, the line of demarcation. As soon as we complete the 10th Bodhisattva ground, we have the resultant state of Buddhahood. Now, with this in mind, we'll recite the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, the Heart Sutra. And we know that the explicit meaning of the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge is the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. There isn't even a single particle of self-character in terms of existing within the object that is findable, but we still have to be able to posit existence through mere designation and dependence upon a collection. This will take a very, very long time to understand, and a lot of texts and a lot of reasons, and then a lot of doubt, and then some more reasons, and then a little bit too much confidence. And then the confidence is smashed and you go back to doubt because you knew the confidence was just a correctly assuming consciousness. And there was no correct sign that you really even established. So be patient with your process in terms of understanding what emptiness is about. And don't be satisfied with just a mere syllogism that seems simple, that you think you understand emptiness just because you understand that a seed makes a sprout that then makes a flower happen, and that somehow this is all you need to understand. Maybe someone could just understand that this lack of autonomy just is the sign of the lack of inherent existence and do it like this. But this mere designation, this labeling, is so indispensable in understanding really what Nagarjuna is getting at. This cause and effect and a collection of parts that then are just merely designated. And that collection of parts, according to Chandrakirti and Buddhapalita, Aryadeva, Nagarjuna, that collection of parts doesn't have any kind of establishment by way of its own character. It's just a mere collection. It's just a basis. That there's nothing from the objects. It's all subjective, but there's external existence. Somehow there's a screen that we're able to project onto that's a basis, a collection, a collection that's like a screen that we're somehow throwing an imprint at and having an experience. And we think that that screen collection that we're throwing a name at, and then believing that that name and that thing are one inherently, we're throwing it. We're just throwing a name at it. We believe that from the side of the object, as soon as we do that, even though we just did that, we don't even know we just did that. We think the thing over there, the whole process was from just this kind of romantic interaction between myself and the object. You know, there's just the two of us, you know, walk into a room, meet with each other. It's over there from its own side. I'm over here from my own side. We're both, you know, appearing inherently existent. And this is how we just go through life. The way things appear is they appear so solid. I appear so solid. You appear so solid. The shoe appears so solid. But appearance doesn't tally with reality, according to the Heart Sutra. But we're not going to figure out what the reality is this evening. it really takes going through to understand, well, what is the introductory reality of, the selflessness that the lower schools are talking about? What is this, kind of selflessness, this permanent, emptiness of a permanent, unitary, independent, self of person, this lack of permanent, unitary, independent self of person, or this lack of substantial autonomous reality, or this lack of true existence without refuting inherent existence, or this lack of inherent existence. There's all of these stages that we have to go through and understand, because they're all things that we have to negate within our own minds in terms of the ignorance that we have. We don't even know we have. And you say, oh, I wouldn't believe that. Well, you believe everything appears to be inherently existent. You, the car, it's the way it appears. It's the way you think it is. The undoing of that is a lot of undoing. So this Heart Sutra is how we undo it. The Heart Sutra that, Shariputra and Chenrezig, they're having this dialogue that's been blessed by the Buddha. And they're, asking questions, how to practice this Prajnaparamita. Avalokiteshvara asks Shariputra, and Shariputra says that seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature, and then just rolls with it. That's empty of nature. That's empty of nature. That's empty of nature. That's empty of inherent existence. That's empty of inherent existence. Yeah, the Four Noble Truths are empty of inherent existence. I know I told you they weren't at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. Surprise! Everything that you can think of is empty of inherent existence. And we see in Meditation on Emptiness that Jeffrey Hopkins was so kind to take all of these instructions from all of these great masters and come up with a character called the yogi. And we went over this before. It says the yogi then establishes this understanding about how things can't be inherently one or separate from their parts, establishes the understanding of emptiness in reliance upon this, the 7-point analysis of the chariot, and reliance upon the 4 essentials and so forth. And then takes this understanding that he or she has applied to themselves of person, or to one thing like a cup, whatever, and then applies it to hundreds of things, and just starts to spend the day trying to find something independent. Catch me if you can. And when you start to see you won't catch it, it's not findable, then you have to say, if this I isn't findable, but I'm sitting here talking to you, what's going on? How do I establish it to exist? And that's what we get to. And then implicitly, we find the Heart Sutra is talking about the 5 paths: path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. Right there in the mantra, that mantra is for sharp bodhisattvas who just don't need all of these words. The Heart Sutra is so condensed. It condenses the 100,000 verse Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. And I got a real chuckle when Khensa Rinpoche taught that, the mantra is for the sharp people who don't need so much information. And somehow a sharp bodhisattva is like, Teata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhisoha. That means the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. And that means that those 5 paths are empty of inherent existence. The end. I know everything that needs to be done. But unfortunately for me, this is too much summary. And I required Jayangapi Lodru's commentary that Rinpoche gave, and a million other books. And then looking at the Abhisama Alamkar and the 70 topics, and trying to wrestling match with that stuff, to try to understand the grounds and paths that are presented in here. And then looking at Nagarjuna and, the Mulya Madhyamika Karika, and then looking at Chandrakirti's Madhyamika Avatara, and, just trying to figure out with all Tsongkhapa's commentaries what's going on. That's all we can all do. There's no special formula. We all just have to grind this out. It's not like something that's, fun and magical sometimes. Sometimes it's just putting in the work. But if we put in the work, it works. There's so many things we put in the work for, and you don't get what you want. The suffering of not getting what you want, the 7th of the 8 suffering, 8 types of suffering. So many things you do, you think, these cause and effects will lead to me getting what I want. And it doesn't happen. But the good stuff, the good thing is the lam rim. If you do the cause and effect stuff, you get what you want. So start getting what you want instead of like throwing dice at samsara and getting some suffering of change. Hopefully get permanent happiness, permanent freedom from suffering, because we have an exact formula to get it. So fortunate. But even knowing this, I still, because I cling to everything as, ordinary appearances seem like everything's inherently existent. It's so hard. It's very easy for me to get drawn towards an object or push something away so hard because I believe it's so solid and independent and findable. But the yogi can't find it. Can't find anything to be attached to. Can't find anything to be mad at. And eventually sees emptiness and doesn't have any feeling of suffering. Doesn't have the cause for it. Can't be born in the lower realms again. Doesn't have that. Doesn't have that ickiness that we have. Sutra of the Heart. Did I screen share? Are you going to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Thank you.
Okay. This guy just keeps talking and talking. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate all of you. And yeah, I can't really see everybody on the other applications. I appreciate all of you. Again, dedicating all of this to removing any obstacles from Gen Nenden Jambal life. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha of Ultra Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma, called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity, no purity. There is no decrease, no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable true complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisoha. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Ngala bene jatamba nenguje de ngai de jen baba lama yi bujinzi nizo gondro zo la jatzelo agasamara jasandra samara be agasamara jasandra samara jasandra samara be agasamara. Agasamara jasandra samara be te ata on gate gate paragate parasangate buddhizo ha Baba Gaja Sanji Gaye de Medoji Lobodoji Mebodoji Shevodoji Dragi Baji Medoji Danji Shedin Gories ha Get in don ja je ju shi wa dan mi dun ni bei jen dan de wa dan dun ba jun jin bun zun zun ju ji da shi de jan den da de li shu. Mandala offering. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. All right. So we're going to talk about calm abiding. So first, let's do what we always do. Let's read through Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good one time. And then we'll go right to the stanza we're on, and we'll go right into what we're going to talk about tonight. And we know the four divisions of Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good, according to Pumbunka Rinpoche, is the first division that deals with the first stanza, how to find a spiritual teacher, relate to a spiritual teacher. The second division that deals with once you have, what do you do? That deals with stanza 2 through 12. And then the third category, Pumbunka Rinpoche says of this is, okay, a prayer that you have removal of any obstacles, that the spiritual friends who show you this good road and all of your, Dharma friends live long and fruitful lives, and may there be no obstacles, things that could stop us now and stop and end forever. Stop us now or stop us in the future, stop and end forever. And then category number 4, may we never be separated from perfect lamas, be blessed to be able to bask in the glory of the Dharma and be able to traverse all the grounds and paths to the level of Vajradhara. So these are the 4 categories according to Pumbunka Rinpoche's short commentary on the Source of All My Good. The Source of All My Good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. I can't tell you how important this stanza is. It's something that's a little bit uncomfortable at first, but as you study more and more, if you spend time with a teacher, you spend time with a qualified teacher, you'll see that you start to fear the time of death less, because you have this connection where you can see your teacher is inseparable from the deity. And you know that the source of all your good is this basis. And fear starts to get resolved and go away if you have this pure relationship with a teacher. And I just encourage all of you to seek this out. If you haven't had it, I encourage all of you to seek this out. A qualified teacher, though. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon. Help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant me that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest cares to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough. For if I am not well trained in the 3 moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the bodhisattva vows. Grant me that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I've practiced well the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then always to keep them, even at the cost of my life. Bless me next to realize that well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road, all my true companions in this quest, live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. So this is so important, where I become myself and the deity and Vajradhara. Our minds are both equally empty of inherent existence. Same nature. The Buddha's nature body, that, the one that is the emptiness of the mind of the Buddha, same nature as the emptiness of our mind. Same emptiness, not a different one, not a different nature. It's just, unfortunately, we have this cruddy, muddy, yucky, dirty stuff around a jewel. You just have to wash it up. You want the jewel. If you knew there was a diamond outside, a big one, you wouldn't have any problem digging around for it and washing it off. Okay, so we're talking about calm abiding, folks. And we're that path where calm abiding and special insight join together. One which just quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects. What are wrong objects? External things. Lama Allen Wallace talks about the assault on our senses of society, that nowhere in all of history can you find this addiction to stimulation, the amount of information coming at the human mind. You just don't see in history this amount of stimulation and information, this assault that's taking place. So this assault that's taking place is happening to our senses, the smells and the sights and the sounds. And so what this calm abiding is trying to do is to pull inward, calm our minds, pulling it inward, pulling it inward, keeping it away from wrong objects, abiding inwardly, calmly, abiding inwardly. So this is what we're trying to achieve. So we've been talking about, how would you make that happen? And last time we talked about the various conditions that one would need in order to make that happen. And I want to get into something, so I'm not going to go back over any of that because I think that we covered it pretty thoroughly, the kind of conditions, and we could go back to it, prerequisites that one would need, needing to be in a good place where you're not going to be attacked by wild animals, preferably a good place where people meditated, and where you can get things that you need, and good friends around, and don't be alone if you're not ready to be alone, and you should have few wants and few desires. So okay, there's a lot of prerequisites there that are going to require my mind to be a little bit better. If I'm going to go into this special retreat in this special place to try to get calm abiding in 6 months, I'm going to have been prepared to do so. So there's objects of meditation that Rinpoche taught us so many times that can help us if, deal with the loudest things first. Because you can try to say, okay, I'm going to just focus on the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni. But if you have a huge problem with attachment, you got to deal with that first. If you have a huge problem with anger, you're going to need to deal with that first. If you have a huge problem with ignorance or discursiveness or pride or jealousy, Gampopa says, you're going to have to deal with this first. So let's talk about antidotes tonight. Let's talk about dealing with it first. And we're going to do something fun. And I wish we had so much more time. And I do this till midnight because I'm going to explain this through two funny ways, not funny ways, but just we're going to use both these books. We're going to go through Gampopa's Jeweled Ornament Liberation and explain what Gampopa is talking about using Tsongkhapa. Just to show that we're all talking about the same thing. Precisely the same thing. I don't have transmission or long teachings on Gampopa's Jeweled Ornament for Liberation. I've heard it quoted a lot. But if you study in a non-lazy way, the 5 great texts, kind of, the best you can, and you study the Lam Rim, Lama Tsongkhapa's Lam Rim, I dare you to open most books and not kind of know exactly what's going on, where it fits in the path, what's similar, what's maybe a little added, a little different, a little da-da-da. It's just all saying the same thing. So we're going to read out of Gampopa's Jeweled Ornament for Liberation, this wonderful Lam Rim text. Milarepa's student, considered, sometimes the beginning of the Kaju. I'm not a historian. Don't ever rely on me for that stuff. I wouldn't at all. Disclaimer. If I'm giving you a historical fact or a date, I would check that. Philosophical stuff, no gray area. I won't create gray. But I'm not a historian, so but I believe that to be true. So what are some of the problems? So Gampopa says that we have to first have this isolation of body and mind. So what is this isolation? What are we talking about? So there's 6 negativities and antidotes to those negativities. Here, slight difference. Tsongkhapa says 5. This one has jealousy added. Everything else is the same. So why not? Let's see. Why not know what to do with jealousy too? We're so fortunate. We have an extra category because jealousy is a problem. So yeah, and I think that jealousy kind of that is similar to covetousness, but not the same exact thing, is a problem for many people. Many people, when you are doing well, are not happy with seeing someone doing well. And when you're not doing well, many people are very happy when you're not doing well and tend to come in and, oh, yeah, because they want to feel superior to you. And then when you're doing well, it's, just disregard them. So anyway, this is my aside. So attachment, if you have a problem with attachment, it says meditate on ugliness. What does this mean? Well, just the raw truth, folks. All this stuff you just need so much. Where does it start? And it's kind of starting with the body, starting with you, and then I, and then mine. And then there's this mind person, consciousness, mine, that then says, that's mine. The object isn't the mind. We're getting a little heady with philosophy in here, but some would say mine is just the mind, is the mind, is the mind that thinks that there's something that the mind possesses, right? Anyway, so I and mine, when we're looking at the view of the perishing aggregates, the mind is the mind that thinks that the 5 aggregates are me. Anyway, let's look at attachment. So what do we do if we're really attached? Okay, so Gampopa says if attachment is the strongest, so if you just are like, you go to meditate on Buddha Shakyamuni and all you can think about is a body or whatever you're attached to, this fancy thing. This is what Gampopa says to do. If your attachment is strongest, contemplate ugliness in this way. So here we have direct instructions on how to influence our mind. First, look at your body as a composite of flesh. And this is also what you do to meditate on emptiness. So all of these instructions are so important. Look at your own body as a composite of flesh, blood, skin, bone, marrow, lymph, bile, phlegm, mucus, excrement, and so forth. And contemplate the 36 impure materials. And there's a footnote. You can look it up. After that, go to the cemetery. Observe a body which has been dead for 1 day. Likewise, 2 days after death, or 3 days, or 4 days, or 5 days. This was obviously easier to do at that time than it would be for us. But we've experienced bodies. We've experienced, if we're old enough, you've seen one. It changes to a darker color, starts to become swollen and putrid, then is destroyed by worms. When you see this, just contemplate that your body is the same nature, this subject, and not beyond this state. Observe a body being taken to the cemetery and the bones being scattered and divided. Can't get any closer to the reality. This was a bone that was inside the body of my root teacher that I felt was so inherently existent and so permanent and unitary. My teacher, I thought was just always be there in the form I saw, and now the form I see is bones. This is my teacher. Now the bones are my teacher. If we really look at what relics are, but this is it. Think about this. And if it can happen to a holy being like this, what will happen to me? Buddha Shakyamuni left. Observe a body being taken to the cemetery and the bones being scattered and divided, some with flesh attached and some with ligaments. In a body which has been dead for many years, the bones turn white as a conch shell. Then after more years, they turn dusty and gray color. So contemplate that your body is also this nature, this subject, and is not beyond this state. So we think about this reality. And when we meditate on emptiness, am I the skin? No, below the skin, there's some pus and blood. And then we get to the bone and you start to, like a scalpel, geshe dirje damdu, like a scalpel. Am I the leader? Am I the earth element? He gets rid of all of that. Am I the water element, the blood that's flowing through all these leaders, this blood that's flowing through me? Am I, the warmth, the energy? Am I this warmth, this energy, this heat within me? Am I the wind that's coming in and out of my body? Is that me? Is the space? Is the space somehow me? Consciousness, is the consciousness somehow me? If I think that consciousness is me, then I say Jeff's a boy. Consciousness doesn't have the attributes of a boy. Physical. I label myself Jeff, who's a boy, in dependence upon boy stuff. So it's merely a collection I'm labeling. So this meditation on it, getting rid of attachment, will eventually help you get to what the calm abiding is going to be united with. And what it's uniting with is looking at emptiness of inherent existence. So this is all so important. So this is about attachment to the body, but we can use the same kind of ugliness idea of what's really over there, and decay and disintegration, and looking at the suffering of change. And that also, when we meditate very well on the suffering of change, then also that serves as a antidote to attachment. Here we're talking about the body, but the suffering of change is something that we know And we were talking about on Sunday, the teaching on renunciation. Where is the happy? So you want something so badly, whatever it is, think of the thing that you wanted the most. Are you happiest with it the moment before you get it, the moment you get it? Which is it? Because it's all kind of downhill from there in terms of the big, it'll never have the same kind of impact. So is the impact even when you have the thing that you're craving? Or is it the moment before you know you're going to get it? Oh, I know it's mine. Then you get it. There's somehow, I think, a release of excitement. I'm not sure, but look at your own mind. Look at your own mind in relation to getting things. When does it seem to be the most escalated bliss enjoyment? It seems to me it may not even be when you get the thing. I think it may be the moment before is the most giddy moment. I'm not sure. Look at your mind. But if there is something you're going to establish as giddier than another time, that object is the suffering of change. If it's not going to stay giddy, that's the reality. That's the ugliness. It should stay giddy if it's worth your time. If it's not an exaggerated object, you grasp at things as being inherently existent, then you conceptualize. As Nagarjuna says, inappropriate attention starts, exaggeration of the object starts. Then push and pull starts. I need that. I hate that. Attachment, hatred, and all the while ignorance sits there and says, I'm ready to hate that. I'm ready to want that because I think everything's inherently existent. I believe things that exist don't exist. I believe the lack of inherent existence doesn't exist. Ready to go. But we can reverse this. It's this idea that's so wrong that's causing this. So this attachment happens, Nagarjuna says, and then we create contaminated karma, contaminated non-virtuous and virtuous karma. And the Buddha said all composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are in the nature of suffering. All effects have a cause. If it's a contaminated cause, you're going to get a contaminated effect. If there's self-grasping ignorance, you're going to get a contaminated effect. That's what the afflictive obstructions are, the self-grasping ignorance. That's what obstruct us from being in nirvana, the self-grasping ignorance. So we create contaminated karmas through our body, speech, and mind, and that's what causes samsara. And if the afflictions aren't present, it doesn't matter if you have, 100 million lifetimes worth of contaminated karma hanging around. Can't do anything because the afflictions aren't there to set it off. You have to have the afflictions there, and the afflictions aren't there. The gross afflictions aren't there if the conceptualization that exaggerates the object isn't there, and the exaggeration of the object can't happen if there's not self-grasping ignorance, grasping at the self of person and phenomena. One more minute. Hatred, aversion. So we talked about being pulled towards something because we think it's inherently existent at the root of it. Here it's just we're not getting into emptiness during this. We're just getting into, why do I like all this stuff that's so gross? Or that's so not what it seems to be. Not what it seems to be doesn't mean like, oh, wow, wicked empty. It just means like at a coarse empirical reality level, it isn't what it seems to be. It's just not. It's not what I think it is because I don't think it's going to decay. Yet when I got my car, it was like the moment before I got my first brand new car, or second brand new car. It was like, oh my God, I'm going to have this thing. Now it doesn't run. We don't know whether to have it towed away and get the 500 for it to junk it. But now used cars are really expensive. So maybe we should keep it and fix it up. It's this thing that like torments our lives multiple times a day. It's down there at the bottom of the hill. If anybody wants to tonight, just make it disappear. But this thing, if you made it disappear the moment I got it, I would have said, thief, that is mine. That thing is incredibly mine. Now I'm like, oh, if somebody takes it away in the middle of the night, it'd be wonderful. Same object, same continuous kind of perception. There's not a new primary object. Same one. There's not a new thing I've realized. Same one. There's new things I'm realizing about the rust spots and the tire that's a little lower. Same car, though. The object didn't possess within it the qualities that I attributed to it. They never did. And they don't right now either, because somebody would think this is the most wonderful thing they could ever have in the universe if they don't have a car and they're mechanically inclined. It's the greatest thing that you've ever seen in their lives. Wow, if they could only have that thing that I think so terrible, that I used to think was the thing, if I only had that thing. Then I got that thing, and now the thing isn't what I thought it was again. And again, and again, and again, and again. Okay, hatred. If hatred is the strongest, the pushing object away. Pushing. It doesn't have to be like, I hate you. You know, that's the strong form. But anger, hatred, aversion is the pushing away, wanting it go away. If hatred is the strongest, then contemplate loving kindness as a remedy. Loving kindness was explained earlier as 3 types. And that's why we're going into Umagomba Rapsel, because compassion is 3 types. And we see Lama Tsongkhapa talks about the 3 types of compassion. Compassion for sentient beings, compassion of sentient beings as object, compassion impermanence, and compassion of observationless. We'll get into it next week. I don't want to just try to start to talk about it, but there's 3 types of compassion. There's 3 types of love. And Gampopa talks about earlier on these 3 types of love, loving kindness, and Lama Tsongkhapa, and they're exactly the same as the 3 types of compassion that Lama Tsongkhapa talks about in Umagomba Rapsel, because obviously Chandrakirti talks about the sentient beings turning like buckets on a water wheel and bowing down to compassion for such beings, and then talks about them being impermanent, and then talks about them being empty of inherent existence, and shows these 3 ways you have compassion for beings, the compassion for sentient beings that are suffering, compassion for impermanent sentient beings that are suffering, compassion for empty impermanent beings that are suffering. These 3 levels of compassion are mentioned in Umagomba Rapsel, and the 3 levels of love are mentioned here in Gampopa's jewel ornament for realization. Page here, it's right here. I'm just going to read it, and then we'll move on. We'll wet our whistles for next week. It's what I said, but I wanted to be able to just read it. But it's fine. I had it pulled aside, but obviously I don't right this second. So I'm not as familiar with this text as I am with the Lam Rinpoche. So all sentient beings are the object. And it says that love is a mind that wants all sentient beings to meet happiness. And then we know that compassion is a mind that, wants all sentient beings to be free from suffering. So we'll get into the exact points that are made next time. So just finishing up on hatred. It's fine. It's like ruining my mind right now. It's okay. First, cultivate the mind, which establishes happiness and benefit for the sentient beings who are closest to you. Here, concentrate on loving kindness towards sentient beings. What sentient beings? All sentient beings. First, cultivate the mind, which establishes happiness and benefit for the sentient beings who are closest to you. Then practice loving kindness similarly for relatives. And after that, practice for both relatives and common people, then even more for common people. Then practice for those who surround you. After that, those in your town or village. And then practice for sentient beings in the east, and so forth in all 10 directions. So anyone who doesn't know what the 10 directions are, they're north, south, east, and west. And then northeast, southeast. I can never do this. So the north, if I have it written down, north, south, east, and west, and then northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and then up and down. That's 10. I did it. So those are the 10 directions that talks about. So you know, obviously that's talking about meditation on that we've done so many times when we look at, you know, love and compassion and the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and then the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice. So we'll look at all of these different points that are made in the next class. So if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. And again, through the force of the truth of this teaching, may all obstacles from Jeffrey Hopkins' life be removed. May he have a longer life and be able to translate more of Jayan Sheba's great exposition of tenets, and specifically the Madhyamaka Prasangika section. And may he finish his work on the Action Tantra section of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the Tantric path. May it be so. Prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketa. So anyway, I just want to say something. Though he's the father, producer of all conqueror, as a conqueror's son, as a bodhisattva, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. This is what we were talking about at the beginning of the teaching. Being able to uphold the Dharma in all of these different worlds, in all of these different places, in the language of all beings. As bodhisattva, it says, as a conqueror's son, as a bodhisattva on the path, the bodhisattva tries to connect to more and more beings because he or she puts all beings' needs before their own, wants all beings, every single sentient being in the universe to have happiness, causes of happiness, and be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And they try to locate all of them. And the Buddha is the best at it. And the Buddha is the best at knowing exactly what they need to hear. But the only way you become a Buddha is by practicing it. Okay. So he did it in the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketa, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring, praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. So that the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation, cleansed of dark, fading, and fog, his pure conduct, practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating all for beings in the doctrine. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanations of the Tripitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three highest higher trainings, his skill and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. And may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle. Hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors like the main guardians of three beings past, quick acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karmayana, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. In short, may by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Thank you again for your patience, everyone. I'm sorry we're going over a few minutes, but we started a few minutes late, so that's my disclaimer, my excuse. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lozandrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, they were inadvertent. I apologize for them. It was due to ignorance. May they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva, and may your minds be pure, your body, speech, and mind be purified by this mantra. Imagining Vajrasattva in the space in front of you, inseparable from your root Lama. Imagining that light rays and nectars are flowing down on you and all sentient beings. And these light rays and nectars are transforming into white light rays and nectars, red light rays and nectars, and blue light rays and nectars. And those are then transforming into white ohms, red ahs, and blue homes, and purifying yours and all sentient beings, body, speech, and mind, respectively. So with this mantra recitation, just imagine this. Om benzo sato samaya manubalaya benzo sato zina wajida dida meva zudukai meva zubukai meva anurag meva sarvasiti me bracha savakama sucha me kitam shuyam kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan sarva tata kata benzo mame moka benzo baba maha samaya sapa ahum ve. May we always be protected by Paul and Lamo. Jarama 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 Jikada Rama Jidaja Junjo Long Yong Jarama 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 Jikada Rama Jidaja Junjo Long Yong Jarama 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 Jikada Rama Jidaja Junjo Long Yong Jarama 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 Jikada Rama Jidaja Junjo Long Yong Jarama 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 Jikada Rama Jidaja Junjo Long Yong Jarama 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 Jikada Rama Jidaja Junjo Long Yong Jarama 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 Dunjo Galara Jemo Ramo Ajadaja Dunjo Rilla Rilla Hunjo. And anybody who's watching, this is Rinpoche's Khyentse Geshe Wandak's room. The Palden Lamo Tanka, you can't see it on Zoom as much or on the YouTube, but you can see it on the other applications right now. And Rinpoche said this is a very special Tanka of Palden Lamo. It's the actual manifestation of Palden Lamo. And he said to put it right in the middle of the room. So I know normally you'd see, kind of a different pecking order of where you put Tankas. Shakyamuni is higher, and but this is, and you see that above there, Buddha Shakyamuni is above in a little picture from the Jo, from the temple, the Jokan, I believe. So just to let people know who are watching why there's this kind of peculiar, altar behind, this American guy. What's going on, just to let you know where I'm sitting. And Khyentse Geshe Wandak asked me to continue his teachings, so I feel it appropriate. We're teaching calm abiding, and one of the aspects of calm abiding is that if you can do it somewhere special, in a place where highly realized beings meditated, it'll be easier. So I'm bringing you all into the room to meditate with me. And I hope that it has an impact on you, because it definitely does on me. Any obstacles you have to meeting the Dharma on anywhere you are, may these obstacles be removed by the power of the Drapusundri, the three wrathful deities. Om Vajrapani Hari Griva Garuda Om Ve. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, embodiment of Chen Rezig, living in our world, breathing our air, walking around the same places we walk around. A living Buddha, please stay here. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. And this is now we do the supplication for Khyentse Geshe Wandak, written by me on March 6, 2023, 1 year after Rinpoche passed on his anniversary. We had a prayer ceremony, and this is a work that I had started as a long life prayer for him 20 years ago that I completed as a supplication prayer on that date. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend, who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible, to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you, drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, music, purified by Om, 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so that they know who you really are. The Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, the Guru is the Sangha, the Guru is the source of everything wholesome. I go for refuge to the Guru. In all of our lives, may we never separate from holy lamas. May all the obstacles to our teachers, long life, be removed. All the obstacles to our friends, spiritual friends, long life, be removed, so that we have as much time as possible to try to get bodhicitta and see emptiness. Because if we can see emptiness as a bodhisattva, then we can become a Buddha. And that's the only way. Thank you, all of you. Please practice this. This is what it's all about, is applying these teachings to your life and to your mind. Don't stack information to try to be smarter and smarter and smarter. Be a smarter practitioner. Thank you.